Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Facepalm Studio. For today's episode, we are going to be talking about virtualization. Now, what does virtualization mean exactly? So, in a brief summary of what we're going to be looking at is, when you're running a VM or a virtual machine on Windows, Mac OS, Linux, what you're basically doing is replicating the operating system that you're working with. So you can either do it a couple different ways. You can create an instance of the same operating system you're working on. So for example, if we're working in Windows, you can create another version of the same version of Windows you're on. Or if you're on Mac, you could try to create the same version of Mac. It's a little bit finickier on Mac. That's going to be a different video. Today we're going to be focusing primarily on Windows and a little bit into Linux. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But overall, creating a virtual machine is an emulation or a virtual version of an operating system that you are trying to work with. So if you are trying to want to experiment with Ubuntu, or you have a version of Linux that you're interested in trying to test, but it has been working on your production machine, you can create, using system resources, a virtual machine that is existing on top of another operating system. And so how we're going to be accomplishing that today is going to be using a tool called VirtualBox. And that's created by Oracle. They have a lot of really good useful tools to be able to do this on Windows, and it's really straightforward and super easy to set up. So I'm going to be showing you guys today how to set that up, what it looks like, how to get the conversion over to the different operating systems, and what exactly you need to be able to make this work. So join me today. Welcome back to Facepalm Studio. So to get started again, talking a little bit about what virtual machines exactly do. On Oracle's website, the easiest way that it explains it here is it runs multiple operating systems simultaneously. Oracle VM Virtualbox enables you to run more than one OS at a time. You can run software written for one OS on another, such as Windows software running on Linux or Mac, without having to reboot to use it. Since you can configure what kinds of virtual hardware should be presented in such OS, you can install an old OS such as DOS or OS2 even if your real computer's hardware is no longer supported by the operating system. And people and manufacturers can actually make virtual images basically to be able to install to VirtualBox that already include certain software packages, that include different like virtual hard disks and things that are implemented to be able to set up like a production environment. So say for example, one that we use at work is for like mailbox storage and like STMP servers to be able, or SMTP servers rather, which that's a whole different video, but being able to go through and work on and implement these virtual machines and include them in your production environment as its own host allows you to be able to create packages and servers that make things work for you. But for today's video, we're going to be just kind of going over the basics. We're going to go over a couple different installations. One, we're going to start with Windows to see what it looks like setting up a Windows virtual machine. We're going to set up Ubuntu, which I think people are most interested in, trying to set up a different kind of version of Linux. Something pretty standard, something that everybody knows how to use. Well, not everybody knows how to use, but something that is familiar that people are excited to try. And then 3, we're going to try setting up the newest version of Kali Linux. It's a version of Linux that I've never set up before, so I think it'd be kind of cool to just kind of see what this looks like on a similar purpose of something that we've never seen. So let's get started. So first things first, you're going to want to go over to Linux's, or not Linux's rather, but Oracle's website. Oracle VirtualBox. And you're going to come here to the download. And if you're on Windows like I am, you're going to be able to just download the most recent version. And you'll want to select for Windows hosts. That's going to go ahead and download the packages that you're going to want to install. The other thing you're also going to want to need is if you go over to downloads, you're also going to need the extension pack. So this extension pack, for a brief idea of what this does, it gives you, let's see here. It gives you additional functionality like being able to use USB or webcam pass-through to the virtual machine. So for example, if you needed to use a Bluetooth adapter, say you were testing a game or testing controllers, you would need to be able to use your Bluetooth adapter for that. or just even to be able to use your mouse and keyboard utilities, you're going to want to install that extension package as well to be able to show that. So when we go and look here, we're going to want to download both of those, which I already have them downloaded on here. So once you go ahead and boot those up, follow the default pathways, and it should prompt you to be able to open the VirtualBox. I'll show you where to go to install the package too. All you would do is just run this extension pack. And for mine, it's telling me that it's already installed, but all you do is install it, and it'll install it on top of your installation for VirtualBox. So I'll just say cancel there. And you'll even see here that it actually launched up VirtualBox right away here. So let me close that out. I'll show you what that looks like from the desktop icon. So we're going to go ahead and select this here. I'm going to open that up. And this is going to be where we get started. This is where we're going to be able to need to select our ISOs and get things going. So really quick, I guess let's explain what an ISO is. So when you're working on way back when, if you had a disk, like a actual install disk for a program, the data that's written on there is called an ISO, or an installation media. That installation media can also be passed over to things like flash drives using a tool called Rufus. If you're trying to install this on a new computer, you'd want to install the installation media or ISO onto this kind of a USB to be able to move things over to the new system to be able to install that operating system. I actually just had to use this to build the living room computer a couple weeks ago. But I also have one here that this one is the one that I use for Linux. I think this is the one that I was practicing SteamOS with, which may be a different video. There's a lot of funny stuff with that. But then I also have an ISO that I actually wrote on this USB. I can boot Linux Mint off of this USB and run it as its own operating system just off of this little flash drive. Now, it already, every time I go and run it, it tells me that it's out of data because there's only 16 gigabytes on here and the OS uses about 10. So out of the actual updates and installs I had to do, I was using this mainly as a recovery drive. If I needed to recover something off of a hard drive, this let me back into there to be able to do it. Which worked for the most part. There was a couple finicky things I had to try, but overall this worked very good for that. But today we're just going to be downloading the base ISO. So I'm going to put some links in the description of where to go to get these. The first one we're going to do is the Windows 11 most recent version 23H2. We're going to download that ISO. We're also going to download the installation for Ubuntu and Kali Linux. So let me go ahead and show you guys where to get those. So if we look here, let's go to Windows 11 download. So if you come over here to Windows 11 downloads, once it loads up here, we should be able to look and see about downloading this. Here we go. Okay, so back to Windows 11. This has a couple options for you to download. Let me set this down. I'm playing with a knife. That's probably not great while I'm trying to use my hands. So you have the Windows 11 Installation Assistant. That's going to allow you to help install Windows 11 onto a boot media. Actually, no, that's the Create Windows 11 media here. This was allowing you to be able to upgrade to Windows 11 if you're interested. But what we're looking for is the Windows 11 disk image. So what we're going to do is download the multi-edition ISO. And it gives you a little bit of a prompt here about what things to look for to be able to download these, to be able to mount the system and that kind of stuff. So what you're going to want to do, it gives you some instructions on how to install this. If you're doing like an in-place upgrade, this also helps really well for that. But for today, for just this video, we're just going to go ahead and just say download now. It's going to verify that. We're going to choose our language. So go ahead and choose your language as needed. And I'm going to say confirm. And it's going to give us the download link, which is here, and you're going to just go ahead and hit download. And you'll see here, this is Windows 11 23H2 English 64 version 2.iso. And that's the key thing, is that .iso. We'll talk about that more a little bit when we get into VirtualBox. So I'm going to go ahead and save this to my downloads folder for now. And we'll give that just a couple minutes for it to download. But while that's starting, let's go ahead and take a look over at Ubuntu. So if we go and get the newest version of Ubuntu, this is the most stable version. This 22.0.4 LTS is the long-term support version of Ubuntu. I, on my current computer, am using 2310, which is the most current version. But for the sake of this video, let's go ahead and install 22.04. So we'll go ahead and download this because this will be slightly different, so that way I can use it for some of these videos. You don't have to subscribe or anything for the newsletter. It should automatically start that download. So right here, it's asking me where I want it to go. We're going to go ahead and save that here. And now those are kicking off. They can be a little bit bigger, so if you have limited storage or if you know where you want these to go, like for example, I'm going to be moving these over to my virtualization folder that I have set up. If you have an idea of where you want these to go, they will take a little bit of time for them to download, so just be prepared for that as you're going. But once they're finished up, we should be able to keep moving with the video here. And I'll also go ahead and show you where to get Kali Linux. I almost forgot about that. So if we go over here to Kali Linux, this is just Google, I'm just searching it. Kali Linux is basically what they call it is like for ethical hacking and learning how to be a secure user with these kinds of softwares. So if you're looking to try to practice learning how to code or work in Linux, but also trying to learn about networking and support for that kind of stuff, you can actually use Kali Linux to do that. And I don't know a whole lot about it, but people have been saying that this newest version has been really exciting and cool. So I'm just going to download that and see how it looks. This one is a little bit of a bigger installation though. So I'm going to go ahead and say download. And then, oh, here we go. So this is kind of like what I was talking about in the introduction here. This virtual machine has a option here for the platform to be able to show like snapshots, isolated environments, Kali kernels, direct access to hardware. So this is a pre-built image for you to actually download and test with. But I think that this is the typical version you would need: direct access to hardware, customized kernel, no overhead. So I think for the sake of this video, we're just going to go to installer images. And what we want to do is we want to download the installer, which should be the ISO. Let me just take a look at this. And I think what we just want is the installer. So I'm just going to download that. Which this should be the ISO. Yep, Kali Linux 2024.1 installer AMD ISO. So we'll go ahead and say save. And that's also going to download to our downloads folder. So we'll give these a couple minutes and I'll be right back with the VirtualBox stuff. We'll get into the fun part. Okay, so now that we have our installations, I'll show you guys here. We have our installations here, and then we have the basic setup for Oracle VM Virtualbox. I'm going to go ahead and start making a new machine. So one of the first things I did, though, was I created a preferences here, and I changed the default path for the hard drives. This typically installs to, here, I can show you. Reset the default. Okay. This typically goes to users, your user, and then VirtualBox VMs. I did just move it over to a new folder here in my one of my SSDs that works a little bit faster, VirtualBox VMs. And actually, I just want to make sure that's the same name. Rename. Just so that way we have a little bit of a better control over that. We'll see if it does the same thing. It should, but we'll just kind of take a look and see. So now, since I have that set up, we're going to go ahead and make our first virtual machine. So we're going to say new. And this is where it's going to ask us the virtual machine and the operating system. So let's call this Windows 11. I'm going to say Pro for this one because I want to see if it's going to let us do a Pro installation. And then this is where you're going to select your ISO. So let's go ahead and say Other. We're going to go over to where we have that saved. So bear with me for just a moment while I grab those. We're going to do Windows 11 first. I'm going to say Open. And VM, or VirtualBox rather, has some built-in functionality to be able to look and see those ISO files and actually give you some recommendations based off the operating system you're looking to install. So it probably is going to give us a couple of prompts here to actually do some customization of if you want to set up a profile, if you want to set up things locally, domain administrator, that kind of stuff. So once this opens here, we should be able to take a look at that. And it's not responding. Excellent. Okay, so we just got our ISOs installed, had to make a little cuts around. I was having a little bit of trouble. We're going to go through the setup again. You may see some cuts of this. This may turn into a Facepalm Friday for some of those extra cuts, but we're going to go through the basic setup for a Windows 11 machine. I think I'm going to try to avoid using Pro because I think that could be where some of the issues are lying. We're going to try setting up as home first, and then we'll try Pro another time. So for this, we're just going to call this Windows 11 VM. And what I did there was select new, and then that's what brought this menu up here. I'm going to go ahead and select the ISO that we want. This is going to have us select what version we want. We're just going to keep that default for this. Is disabled. I'm going to leave this all as default for the sake of this video. This time trying it. So we're going to go ahead and say next. Let's see. So this is where I was having trouble before. So actually, I am going to skip the unattended installation. Let's just install it manually. We're going to set this up with 4 gigabytes and 4. Actually, let's do 8 again. 8 and 4. We'll say next. Let's keep this even default. We're just going to use all the defaults to the best we can at the moment. So basically what these settings are doing, I'm sorry, I forgot that I've already gone through this once or twice. Let me go ahead and step back for a second. So this is setting up the ISO, the installation file media that we need. This tells us what version we want to select and if we want this to be attended or unattended. If we select unattended, that's going to create the default profiles and admin and try to register the product key, which we don't have. And it's going to make us want to install it in the background. So since we don't have that information, I'm going to just say next. And now it's going to let us select our hardware. So this is going to be our base hardware memory that's utilizing our system resources of the host computer. So my workstation's resources to be able to utilize that toward. So this says here, I have 24 CPU cores available, and I'm going to be using 4 of those. And then this tells me I have 32 gigs of RAM available, and I'm going to be using 8. This is going to create the virtual hard drive for this system. Right now it's set to 80. Let's turn that back up. Let's do 150. And I'm going to leave this unchecked. I'm just going to use as much defaults as possible because like I said, I've done this a couple times. It's having a little bit of trouble. So let's go ahead and say finish. And this should go ahead and let us start the installation here. So let's go ahead and say start. And we'll see if it lets us install properly this time. We got itty bitty VM. Let's go ahead and make this bigger. Press any key to boot for CD. That's what we want. We want to boot it from the CD. All right, so now we're looking at the Windows installation. So this is just like as if we were installing Windows on a brand new computer. So let's say next, install now. This is going to get the setup queued up. It's going to ask us for the product key here in a moment. I don't have one, so we're going to say I don't have a product key. And this is where it's going to ask us what version we want to install. I'm going to just do home just for the sake of the video because I've been having trouble getting Pro working. This is better. Okay, so it's actually checking our requirements that it's recognizing it. So I'm going to say accept and next. This is going to be install Windows and keep file settings and applications. So we're going to go ahead and say that. The upgrade option isn't available if you start your computer using the installation media. Please remove the installation media and restart your computer. Oh, sorry, wrong version. Okay, so we do want to do custom install. So this is going to be the virtual hard drive that it's using with the unallocated space. It's reading it as if it's a brand new drive. So we're going to go ahead and use this drive. And we're going to say next. And it's going to go ahead and start installing Windows. You can see here in virtual machine, the VirtualBox is using quite a bit of my CPU and quite a bit of my memory because that's what I have allocated for this machine. That 8 gigs of RAM and the 44% of my CPU, that's 23% of my processor. So you'll see that I'm utilizing quite a bit of my system resources right now, but that's okay because I have the room for it. But if you're looking to run some of these virtual machines on some of these other computers, it may take a little bit more of the resources than you're expecting. So just be wary of that when you're doing the startup for some of these as well. What I'm most shocked about is that my recording has kept up this entire time. Actually, I haven't checked Audition in a while. Okay, good. Yep, we got audio rolling still. Got a little worried for a minute. So I restarted the virtual machine because it was stuck on that blue screen for a little bit longer than I wanted it to. And we're going to see if it boots back up. Hey, it says getting devices ready. Okay, that's a good sign. Oh, hey. Is it finally booted? I've been sitting here for a couple minutes. Let's see what happens. Oh, that looks like a mouse. Okay, it rebooted again. VirtualBox. Hey, we got Windows coming up. That took a little bit longer than I wanted it to. I had to reboot the system once. I'm going to do some jumps ahead. Thank you guys for bearing with us. We got Windows starting to boot. Let's see if it actually finished the installation properly. And again, this may be running a little slow, only because I'm also recording. I have the VM running, which is using system resources, and I'm not using all of the requirements as what is recommended for Windows 11. So the fact that it's using 8 gigs of RAM versus 16, and then also using what's it called? 4 CPU cores versus 8 or 16, you know, it's going to be a little bit slower. But we're here. We're in Windows now. So you can see I'm running Windows on this virtual machine. And I'm still on my Windows desktop. Like, how cool is that? So let's go through the basic setup here. We'll say next. I'm going to try to skip some of the network settings. We're not going to connect to Wi-Fi or anything. It may recognize that the wireless is enabled, but we're just going to kind of go through this as default skip. Checking for updates, which I didn't want it to do, but it's going to do it anyway because I'm connected to network, which is fine. So it's, again, it's like basically you're setting up the computer as if it was your own current workstation. Like as if you were setting up a brand new laptop, desktop. This gives you a virtual environment for you to work in. Now, the thing with these two is you can separate these out. Like when we go into the Kali Linux setup, or if we go into the Ubuntu setup, those are isolated environments too. They're going to, all the installs and things you're doing on here can be set up separately, so that way you're protecting your data. So like say if you were trying to practice hacking, or say you were trying to practice breaking something on this system, it shouldn't affect the main system. However, with how the drives and stuff are installed, there's a chance it could do some work like that. So it's just things you have to be aware of when you're trying to set these up for the first time. And my new microphone is out for delivery, so we can do some more testing. Let's get it. Do. If you're ready, come and get it. Da 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 da, ba da da do 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 do. My PC will restart before I can continue. Sounds good to me. And again, it's all built in here. It's doing really well now that it's actually booting. And again, I had to install Windows Home because Windows Pro wasn't cooperating, but we can try Home or Pro another time. But for the sake of this video, I wanted to show you that this does work. And I am going to attempt to set this up now that we're getting kind of into the operating system. I am going to attempt to set this up without all this extra stuff here. Naming the device. Yep, we do want to do this. So let's call this Win VM FPS. Windows Virtual Machine FPS. Actually, let's do this. FPS Win VM. Next. You can skip that too. It'll just assign a default name that can be changed later. But for the sake of like trying to remote into this machine or doing that kind of stuff, we do want to try to get it like that. It's rebooted a couple times now. Usually the installation, once it boots up to that, it kind of just goes but it's probably trying to write certain files to it, trying to get things set up how it needs to, as Windows does. And again, these aren't full system resources, so it's probably trying to figure that stuff out as well, while trying to also give us the best install option as possible. And I still have to show you guys Ubuntu and Kali, so stay tuned. We are here in Windows now, finally able to see that we are now within Windows 11 on our own operating system running Windows. It's just so cool. This is Windows 11 Home, but it is doing what we want it to do. It's showing us, like, I mean, we're on Windows and I'm in a Windows computer. Like, I mean, that's the coolest way I can show it. This is just so neat. Display resolution. It's kind of stuck at that, isn't it? Which is fine. Let me see if it lets me do this now that it's 19. Let's see. Well, let me. I wonder why it's not letting me change that resolution, but that's okay. We are in Windows and we are in the operating system, and it is cool. It is Windows 11 Home. So if I go to System here, it's going to show us we're in Windows 11 Home, and it only took us a little while to get here. You know, it shows my processor here, and it shows my installed RAM, my product ID. You know, it shows that we're on 23H2, which is the most current version of Windows. And it's just cool. We're in Windows. We're here. Yay. Let's go to Linux. After all that, I'm not even going to do anything on here because it just took so damn long. But we have a virtual version of Windows running here in this operating system. So it's just super cool. Now, so we've just finished up getting Windows set up after an arduous process. Let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like to set up Ubuntu. So let's go ahead and we're going to do a new VM. So we're going to go ahead and do new. So if you start up here at the top, I don't know why I pinned that. I'll keep that pinned. You go to Tools, New. Let's go into our VMs, and we're going to select Other. And we're going to do Ubuntu Linux. Let's go ahead and call this Ubuntu 22.04.4 VM. Okay. This one can be installed unattendedly. So let's go ahead and try that this time. We're just going to use all the defaults. We're going to say next. Let's make our user facepalm. Okay. There's no product key required for this. And let's just call this, let's see here, FPS dash Ubuntu. Yeah, FPS dash Ubuntu. Sounds good to me. Oh, VM. I want to define it as a VM. Cool. I don't think we need to do all this here, but I'm going to still do it. Facepalm.studio.local. Just for now, while I'm figuring things out. So we'll go ahead and say next. Let's give it our requirements. This time I'm going to give it, we'll do 8 again. And we'll do 2, 4. We'll do 4 CPU. We'll say next. Virtual hard drive. See, the requirements are much less than this. Let's go ahead and give this 80. And we'll say next. And so this is the basic setup for us. We'll go ahead and say finish. And it's going to go ahead and power up because it's going to try to do the unattended installation. So let's see what happens. So we're going to go ahead. Let me increase the view on this. Virtual, let's see, 200%. And it should be just going through the installation for Ubuntu, which is already looking really good. Way better already than the Windows installation. And again, this is completely virtual. And here we go. We're already in Ubuntu. It already signed us in. We just got to do the basic setup here. So let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. It's just verifying the installation, doing the unattended install for this version of Ubuntu. Okay, my installation is finishing up here. Once it boots up, we should be able to check and see that, make sure that Linux is working properly. We'll just do a couple of quick updates. And again, this is virtual, so we're running this on top of Windows. And you'll see here that I do have the ability to see my other virtual machines also here. So like if I did want to, I wouldn't right now because it's going to be using a lot of RAM. I could power on my Windows machine as on top of my Linux, on top of my Windows installation I currently have installed. I could technically have all three of these running all at the same time. But we're just kind of playing the waiting game, waiting for Linux to finish up installing. So, and it looks like it actually just finished. So let's give it a second here, see if it'll let me boot up, and we'll try to sign in. And we are now set up inside our Linux version for Facepalm. So let me just go ahead and try signing in here. See if I type my password right. Oh, come on. There we go. Had to try a couple times, but here we are. We are here now on Ubuntu, and we're on Linux. I mean, I have it all set up here. Let's not set up any online accounts right now. Skip. Skip for now. Sure. Next. This is just the welcome, but we're here. Welcome to Ubuntu is not responding. Wait, I guess. There we go. We're ready to go. So now this lets us install what we need to. So like if we wanted to install a couple applications, OBS even, we have those things ready to go. So like for the sake of this, let's just go into terminal really quick. Let's see, and let's just run a sudo apt update. So sudo apt update. And then it's going to ask us for our sudo password, which is the sign-in. Facepalm is not in the sudo. Oh, do I have to go to root first? cd root. Sudo apt update. Sudo Facepalm is not in the sudo's folder. Okay, so I'll have to look into that. But we are here. We are in Linux. I don't know why it's not letting me run this as root, though. I'm curious about that now because I really want to try to figure that out. But that's for another video. So for this, we just set up that one. Let's try setting up Kali Linux. Again, this is a different version of Linux that I haven't tried before. So let me go ahead and close this one out. So let me shut this machine down. Go to power off, and I'm just going to power off. And that's going to close this machine up. All right, and that was as quick as it was. And you'll see here, I have two versions of Linux, or Windows Linux, and now we're going to do another version of Linux. So let's go back up to Tools. We'll do New. Let's go ahead and select our Kali Linux. Open. We're going to call this Kali Linux VM. And this one doesn't allow unattended access, so we'll say install. I don't know what this requires, so we're just going to kind of give this some minimal features here. We'll still do 4 cores. We'll say next. And give this 50 gigabytes to start with. Next. Finish. And we'll go ahead and power this on. Okay, so now we're here at the Kali Linux running window. Let me go ahead and make this bigger again. Virtual screen 200. So we'll go ahead and just do the graphical install. You click the mouse inside the virtual machine display. So right now it's right control to get out of that. So we'll say capture, that's fine. And if I hit right control, that's going to let me get out of that. So, but this is going to go ahead and start the synthesis of our system and be able to run the installation for Kali Linux. We want our language, so let's go ahead and check that. I think, I don't remember what one it was. Default is 20. Let's do 16. Again, I've never set up Kali Linux before, so this is already showing us here. Let's do number 1, that's default. And it's going to detect our hardware. It's going to scan the installation media to run this. And we'll just kind of wait for this to do the installation. And again, this is now a third operating system running on top of my Windows installation. Now again, I'm not running any of these simultaneously, but that's what I'm going to show here in a minute. I'm going to try to run this version of Linux on top of the Ubuntu we also just loaded. Hostname is a single word that identifies your system network. So let's go ahead and do this. This is going to be fps-kali-vm. The domain name is the part of your internet access. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this here. So that's going to be the facepalm.studio.local. A user account will be created for you. Instead of the root account for non-administrator activities, please enter the real name of this user. This information will be used. So let's go ahead and just do Nicholas. We'll just do this facepalm. Facepalm. And we'll do the same password I just did. Time zone is Eastern, so we'll do that. And it's going to detect our hardware. So now it's just going to continue doing the setup. Okay, so now it's asking me to install the default desktop environment. I've heard the KDE Plasma has been doing really well. So, oh, it gives us a couple. So let's see here. I guess we can do 1. 2, 5, 6, 7. Might as well just install the defaults. We just hit 100% on this, and that was probably for the system because now it looks like it's trying to do the grub bootloader. So let's see if it's actually going to give us some boot options here. Warning, if your another computer has an operating system, install grub. I think the default is 1, so we're going to say yes. You need to make your newly installable system bootable by installing grub bootloader on a bootable device. Usual way to do this is your primary drive. 2. Okay, so this should be wrapping up the installation now. Sorry for the break there. Hopefully I did something cool. I don't know. I've been working on this for a while. This will be fun to edit, though. That's for sure. Give it a second. All right, here we go. So now it's saying installation is complete, so it's time to boot into your new system. Let's just say, let's choose continue to reboot. So now it's going to reboot the VM, and it should boot us into the system. And here we are. Another operating system running on top of Windows. So it should give me an option here to log in here in just a moment. So this should be facepalm. Oops, click in here. Oh. PALM. And here we go. We are now in Kali Linux. Again, I've never used this before, so like the GUI and stuff is looking a little unfamiliar to me. A lot of stuff in here though. So we're going to be able to, wow, quite a lot of stuff in here. Interesting. So we're going to be able to take a look at this in another video. But what I wanted to show here now is, so we have Kali Linux up right here. Let's say if I wanted to check things on both of these systems. So let me go ahead and start up my Ubuntu system on top of this. Now I'm going to apologize in advance if the video lags out a little bit here. I'm just curious to see if this is going to work. So now what we have, I now have not only Kali Linux running, I now have Ubuntu running in just a moment. I have Ubuntu running. I have a security-based software for Kali Linux running. And I have that all running on top of my Windows installation. How cool is that? So if I went to log in here, I have 3 different operating systems running on one system at once. And that's all local to this one machine. And they all have access to the network. Kali Linux has access to my system. And, you know, it's all built in. It's all just incorporated in this whole thing. It's just super cool. Oracle is super powerful. Now, I know this is probably a little bit of a longer-winded video. I'm hopefully going to be breaking it up into a little bit more digestible pieces, so let's just break down what we did today. We installed Oracle VM Box, downloaded the ISOs for Windows, Kali Linux, and Ubuntu, and then created virtual machines off of each of these. Now, there's a lot that you can do with these systems, and I will be using these in the future here, especially the Ubuntu one, once I can figure out the administrator parts. And the Windows one, once I can figure out Pro, I'm going to try to set those up as my own kind of servers and kind of run things off of this machine, or maybe even off of the Linux machine I have down here too. So I'm not utilizing my recording system's resources all the time. But this is it. This is how you set up these kinds of virtual machines. So I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a comment down below about things you want to see in Linux. If you have more questions about virtual machines, I can try to answer them the best I can. I'm still learning this stuff as well. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. So until next time, keep creating, save the pain from those facepalm moments. I know I had a couple in this video, but I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.